Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where you might want to be careful what you ask for because it just might happen. So now you kids better listen to this episode or I'll clobber you. I'm Pete Boomer.
Oh my God. I'm Tom Taylor and I'm wearing a jeans jacket. I don't like books or history or nothing, old man.
Yeah. Hey, be cool, Pete. Be cool. Jeez.
You get back here, you kids. And if you haven't
God
noticed,
almighty.
after many sleepless nights, the curse of the Jackal is finally caught up with the Indiana Jones Minute. And today we're going to be talking to you about the pilot for the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles that aired in, I think, 1992.
That sounds about right. I remember watching this in my dorm room in college.
Oh,
and
I've never seen it before. I've never seen any of them before. So this is a kind of a revelation.
Interesting.
Oh, and I should say, if you haven't seen it before and you're about to listen to this, we're going to talk about the entire episode and there will be lots of spoilers. So you might want to watch it first if you don't want it to be spoiled. And we'll put a link to it's all on YouTube, divided up into different sections if you want to watch it there. So we'll put a link in the episode notes, or you can watch, I think, Amazon Prime. You can watch the thing, but that they haven't divided up differently. They made this series and then recut them into films using separate episodes. So this won't match what you see on the Amazon Prime episode.
That was a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
Or if you'd like, you could just watch Scrappy Doo. That's fine.
I think you're already getting an idea what some of us think about the show.
and by the way, I'm Jerry Porter.
Hey!
Oh, yeah. Hi, Jerry.
I didn't hear that, yeah. You're too busy getting clobbered there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I won't actually clobber any of you, dear listeners. That is one of the most famous lines uttered by Harrison Ford in film history. So, as you probably all knew. But yeah, we're talking about the Young Indiana Jones series, the pilot. And I think George Lucas really became enamored with the idea of doing this when they made Last Crusade. And he said he really enjoyed doing the young Indy scenes in Last Crusade. And he said people kept asking him, like, well, what did Indy do when he was this age? Or what did Indy do when he was this age? And apparently, George Lucas says he wrote like a treatment for 70 different episodes.
Oh, man.
And each episode, Indy would meet a historical figure. And then he would give each episode to the writers, and they would flesh it out, and they would make the actual episode. And so they made this series. They started making this series. It had a huge, enormous budget, and very few people watched it. So they only made 30 of them.
Yeah.
So, and apparently the ones that were coming after, Indy was just about to going to start meeting younger versions of like Abner and Belloc and stuff.
Oh, wow.
I'm floored that didn't happen sooner.
Oh, it was weird. Well, we kind of met young Abner in Last Crusade, but so it would have been weird. But
No, we didn't. It's not funny, Pete.
This
would have been older Abner.
This all smells like a baby Greedo. Just all of it smells like.
I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. This pilot begins with some kids visiting a museum, and a 93-year-old old man Indy, played by George Hall, is here. And I hadn't seen, like I said, I've never seen one of these. And when I saw this, what they call the bookend to start this off, I was like, this is going to be the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Those kids are pretty insufferable. Those TV kids.
Yeah.
There's like the 90s or maybe like the 80s and stuff. They just had a lock on like just fake TV kids.
I don't even know how those
and their combed hair and
how those kids got into TV.
Yeah. One kid only barely did. He's like overdubbed the entire time.
Yeah.
Hey, old
man.
man.
They're visiting an Egyptology exhibit, and these two kids decide to sneak off. And as they're running away from their school group, an old man trips them with his cane, and he says, "Come back here, or I'll clobber you."
In true Indy fashion.
It's just like Indiana Jones would do. And he apparently has glaucoma because he's wearing an eye patch with some glasses over the top of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
There's
so are those kids toughs?
They would like to think so.
I'm
Yeah.
just asking. Are they? Is
It's
that,
like
you
every
know-
kid who thinks he's a tough in like 6th grade.
Yeah. They're only tough
When
when their
you're
buddy
dealing with them-
Kool-Aid busts through the wall. And when
Yeah.
they summon
Yeah.
him with their magic spell.
Exactly.
Also, when you're dealing with a 93-year-old man, you feel tough. Like you're like, this is just this old guy with a cane.
Yeah. What does he know? He probably reads.
Yeah.
We should
We
point
think
out
you
that
stink, man.
he's what? How old is he? 96. He's supposed to be.
93, I think.
93?
I think. Yeah.
Because it's
And I guess-
1992 and he was born in 1899.
And George Hall, that's his name. He was
Yeah.
75 when they made it, so he's playing 20 years older than himself. And we do need to point out that now in 2019, Harrison Ford is 76. So this is
Well-
Harrison Ford could be playing this version of Indiana Jones now.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I have to
Wow.
And
say,
I guess we'll
this,
see that in a couple of years.
this guy, to me, there's nothing about this guy that feels at all like Indiana Jones.
Okay, wait, hold up. Now, does this guy remind you of Freddy Krueger? I'm not even being funny. Like Robert Englund.
Maybe a little bit,
Freddy,
yeah,
like
maybe a
Freddy
little bit,
Krueger.
yeah.
There's something.
Yeah, I
He's got
can
an
see that.
angular thing.
Yeah.
He's got that rasp.
He
in
does
his
have an
voice.
angular thing. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that. Yeah.
Got a thing for kids.
Yeah,
I will
they
say,
kill
I
him?
mean, I agree. I mean, you look at this old man, Indy, and you're like, I'm turning this off. You've offended
Yeah.
me. I'm
Right.
walking away. I'm going to go, do something with my life. And yeah, I'll clobber you. There's stuff like that where you're like, who is this? Is this Jimmy Stewart from the 40s? Well, who am I watching? This isn't, but there is a lot to him that kind of, I can see, okay. He's an old crank. He's sort of,
Uh-huh.
there's some lines that are absolutely not Indiana Jones, and there are some lines that he has where I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
can hear that. Okay.
And I will say, like when I said I put my cards on the table, if I got past Old Man Indy and I ended up really, really enjoying this show. I didn't expect to.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Okay.
So there's a lot in here that I really
God
like. And Jerry's
damn.
furious right now.
You let him down. You let down your friend.
I
know.
I mean,
It's a steep hill because it's so. I mean, we've joked about like
like
Murder
a
She Wrote and stuff.
steep hill of fire. Like there's an avalanche.
Uh-huh.
It looks and feels like very standard '90s television,
Uh-huh.
which is
Well,
very uninteresting.
the
but-
visually it does.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it, but
Yeah.
we'll
The
see.
story, I think the story is pretty amazing in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I mean, okay. I mean, I don't know even how to unpack this. It's just like you. It's just like opening a trunk of spaghetti and pancreas. It's just, I don't know where to begin. I mean,
maybe we should begin at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where what were we saying? Where was I? Which is how.
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
What was I saying? Where were,
Cue the wavy filter.
Before we get there, I have a question for you,
Uh-huh.
Miss Pleasant Peter.
Uh-huh.
Why do the kids go over and listen to him give the, why do they listen to him at all? He's
'Cause they
like,
don't wanna get
now come over
clobbered."
here. Yeah, but I'm
I
going to
have no
say
idea.
my favorite.
I told you I don't like the bookend. I don't like the
yeah,
bookends.
you just see. I think the bookend I actually might be my favorite part, which I still don't like. I still don't like, but at least like I mean, the kids are insufferable, and
Yeah.
Maybe they think this
you know,
old man's an easy mark, and if they just like listen to him long enough and distract him, he'll fall asleep and they can take his wallet.
they can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind an old indie and an eye patch is kind of okay, and I do like how there's he relates it and ties it all into the museum. That's cool. He's at the museum, and I like the fact that he trips those little punks. I wish there was more of that. More
And he
tripping.
does tell him that like half the stuff at the museum was because of him.
Yeah, which is kind of like I
Yeah.
kind of part of me said like but and I could see the story. Like if somebody told you the story, you'd be like, go on, okay. But the way it's acted and written and played out. I mean, it's just it unfolds. Well, go ahead. Let's start at the beginning. What do you got to say for me, old man?
Well, I like it. We had some controversy in the Listeners Crusade recently. Somebody posted a map of the most famous fictional characters from each state.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of us were very surprised to find Indiana Jones from New Jersey. But this begins with Indiana Jones telling these kids that he's came from just across the river in New Jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's going to be
Princeton.
a problem for me throughout this movie. This what is this, an episode of TV? I guess it's
Well,
it's long. Is it a TV movie?
I don't know. Yeah, well, let's pilot. Yeah, I guess a TV
I think it's
movie.
a double length pilot episode or something.
And I will
But
say,
yeah,
I think it's very good we're covering this because this movie pilot will be directly referenced in Crystal Skull. So
that's
we've
true.
got some very important
Yeah.
stuff.
But at the same time, it's weird. This is not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's weird to watch this as an Indiana Jones fan who knows what's going on, and also figuring, oh, maybe they're probably trying to smooth things over for people who don't know Indiana Jones. They're just coming into a cold or something, because things like New Jersey, they won't let go of New Jersey throughout the entire episode. It's
Yeah.
like New Jersey all over the place.
Yeah.
And And for people who just saw Last Crusade the year before, you're like, whoa, what about Utah? Like, I'm not totally following this, but okay, I guess I can't confuse the audience that much for TV or something. But yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Well, and so yeah, Indy starts by reminiscing, and he tells these kids, and I don't know how these kids are still listening. When he goes way back, he's like, I was a kid, and he has all these adventures with his. He sneaks out of the window just like in Last Crusade and meets Indiana the dog. It's a really cute dog.
That's really cool.
That's a good
I
dog.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And then
he
he,
sneaks out.
Puts Indy in a balloon, and Indiana in a balloon, and then he puts Indiana on the back of one of those little train cars you push with the handle, and they have some adventures. And then he says his dad has written a book that everyone around the world is reading, and so they go on this worldwide speaking tour. So they're off to London.
And they seem the family is very like, big hats and cravats and, very, upper class.
Yeah.
But when we see them in Utah, Indy and his dad, it's very dusty and kind of, ink stained fingered, sort of academic, kind of, grubby and dusty and everything. And you wonder if did the wife dying kind of knock the wind out of them or something?
Yeah, I think that's good actually, because I feel like that's what happened. Like,
I like that
because
too.
Indy says she was the smartest, most wonderful, whatever person he'd ever met, and she took the wind out of everybody's sails, and everyone's just like, well, now we'll just do what we want. Like,
that's a great point. I don't Indy's father is he is, as you said, kind of an upper cruster. But what I like about him in Last Crusade is he's kind of nuts and eccentric, and he's really weird. And he's definitely not that. He's monomaniacal with this whole this Holy Grail business, and he's nuts. He's not anything like that in this one.
Right. You think that
we don't get
Grail
much of it,
fixation?
but
we don't get a ton of him. You're right, but you'd think that there is no hint of like him being obsessed or not thinking of his family, or
he does spend the whole time looking at a book. Like, he's not really paying attention to anybody. He's just kind of reading his book the whole time.
That's true.
But yeah. And then when they get to Oxford, where his dad went to university, Indy gets a big surprise. He gets to meet his new tutor supreme, Helen Seymour.
Yeah.
And Indy seems to have some sort of misogynistic issues right from this really young age, because he immediately calls her a witch and storms out of the room.
She's a witch! Yeah.
I was actually really excited to see her. The actress who plays her is Margaret Tyzak, who anyone who's cool has watched I, Claudius, and she plays Antonia, Claudius's mom. And she's I, Claudius is like, it's the nexus of all nerddom. It's got Star Trek, Raiders, James Bond, like all these things coming together with all these actors and everything, Alien and stuff. Yeah, Sala's in it. So check out I, Claudius. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Look, I think the maps are even half-assed.
They are. They're the wrong color. The lines are the wrong
they're just
color.
all of it. It's just and they show the map like kind of for a second faded in the background, and there isn't really like a well-defined line of where they're going. It's just sort of like, remember how we had maps and we just said,
we also, I think we
Yeah.
all three watched this on YouTube in a very bad transfer.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
It's possible it looks much better.
Oh my God. No, it
Maybe.
wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. The only, my favorite part of the fart noise is throughout. The kids are farting in the background while he's telling them the story.
What was that?
Basically, yeah.
Where was I?
Basically, that's actually the quote Jackal that we keep hearing.
What smells like Jackal in here? It's the curse. It's come for
There
me.
is something I did want to bring up, though, because I did watch this with a very close eye at the beginning. One of the reasons those kids don't like the museum is because they say, quote, it's filled with junk. And I thought that was a nice callback to Marion in Raiders, talking about Abner
okay.
and junk.
Yeah.
Little bits
Yeah,
of
that is-
junk.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
some people see junk in the museum.
Do you wish the mom was coughing in every scene? Oh, it's
Yeah.
nothing. No, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired. Let me sit down for a minute.
But we do have he says that they sailed across to the Mediterranean. They're going to Egypt. And he says that his mother and father had a really good time on the voyage while he was busy studying. And I was wondering if this kind of calls back to Jerry, when we were discussing the comic books on Patreon, you would surmise that maybe Indy has a secret sister.
A sister.
Oh, yeah. Sister.
Yeah. So I wonder if this good time might have been the beginning of Indy's sister.
Find out in Indy 5.
Yeah.
Coming
yeah.
soon.
Or listen to the Patreon, our comic book episode, if you want to hear more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Indy shows up in Egypt.
Oh, wait. Before we get to Egypt, sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Just to be a nerd, the captain is played by C.O. Bibble from Phantom Menace. Carry on.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, wait, but now hang on a second before we get to Egypt. So let's first of all, so Indy is homeschooled.
Yeah.
Home tutored, yeah.
They're home tutored. So is this?
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting because is he homeschooled for 2 years? And is that
I
what
guess
it
for,
is?
like, the
Because later
duration of
on,
this trip, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
seems
later
like, yeah.
on, it sounds like he has to, he does have to get back to high school. So at some point, he's not homeschooled.
Sounds like you're making an argument to watch all of these, Joe.
Yeah. We got to find out how he matriculates.
Well, wait. Curses. Also, hey, what do we think of this nice callback to the Pankot Palace dinner scene?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
and the whole gross how they, I don't know, prepare, the pharaohs for mummification. They pull
Yeah.
the
Yeah, so
brain out.
they're having dinner with the captain,
Mhm.
and the captain asks Indy what he's been learning, and Indy decides to regale everybody with tales of how mummies are created, like how they mummified people and like pull their brains out of their nose and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as they're eating, like more and more people get up to leave because they're so disgusted.
And no one
But
tells
what-
this kid to just shut up.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really
Hold your hands
interesting,
and shut up.
and
Even the
Henry's
captain.
Henry Sr. allows it to go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it's
He's just reading his book.
Yeah, there's just the two of them left. So does he know? Does he think what Indy's doing is charming?
I think he's excited that Indy's learning something because
Is that what it
that's
is?
an interesting speech, Junior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he says, "Thank you, Father." And then he says, "Now eat your tripe." And then Indy gets disgusted and gets up. And leaves.
that's right. Now, here's-
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
thank you. And you know what? That's what the music is like. This entire this entire
Yeah.
show. The music is like there's a guy there with an Egyptian slide whistle that plays an exotic. It does an exotic slide.
with one very small exception, I'll agree. But I wonder how much different this would have felt if it had John Williams music to it.
It's just
Yeah.
it's really campy and like I don't know. It just
Yeah.
it's
It's light.
very little.
does- it does some campiness
It's
to it,
beyond
yeah.
light. It's beyond. It goes past light.
I will not say that because I think there's some pretty heavy moments that come up later.
Well, let me ask you this, Pete, because you're just
Uh-huh.
weird enough. Have
I
you
know.
ever had tripe?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I knew it.
Often.
See, I knew
If
it.
you get if you're a fan of pho or like Vietnamese soup, you get it with tripe,
Oh, really?
or you can get it with tripe.
You
How is
can't-
it?
and how? Yeah, how is it?
It's pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of it. I usually get it without the tripe, but
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked you.
Jared and Tom say, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, can I give huge points to the show for one thing? I
Yeah.
as soon as I got to Cairo, I was just waiting for them to meet baby Sala, and then I was going to turn off the TV and run away. And it never happened. We never met baby Sala.
Yeah. No, there wasn't a lot of the wink wink stuff, which I thought was good.
Baby Sala.
He'd be huge and have a beard already.
Yeah, he'd be huge and have a beard already. And he'd be,
court.
His tie would be like 2 inches long.
Yep, he'd be singing.
But we do get a little indie callback is when he kind of runs off through the streets of Cairo with his tutor chasing after him, and he stops to watch a snake charmer, and he's just enthralled.
Oh yeah.
And she kind of grabs him and pulls him away.
He's not scared of snakes.
He's not like, whoa, that was scary or anything like that. Or
well, sure glad I'm not afraid of snakes.
Right,
That would have ruined it.
But so his tutor takes him on a trip to the pyramids, and his dad says, "Oh, that's a great idea. He'll get to see the pyramids while we're in Egypt." And she gets super colonial and pays the guide 10. I don't remember 10 what, but he pays the guide 10 instead of 30 like he asked for.
Oh yeah.
And Indy's like, I think that might have been a bad idea. And she's like, no, he'll be happy with his 10.
Yeah.
And so they climb one of the pyramids, and as they're doing that, the guide runs off, and they find themselves in great peril because they suddenly don't have any camels to get back. And it's when they get down to the bottom of the pyramid, they're saved when the literal Lawrence of Arabia rides up on a bicycle.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, so hang on.
That's
right
handy.
Before Lawrence of Arabia appears, I was thinking, now here's a great pivot point where it's young Indy and Ms. Seymour, and I was like, this might turn into like a Harold and Maude. Like this might be a whole thing, like like we're Indy.
You're going in the wrong direction for Indy, though.
It's like he was
that
like,
was his
no,
turning
that was
point.
it.
He's like,
yeah,
never again will I go any older than me. Never again.
I thought he was gonna be like, I was a child, I was in love.
You were a cougar.
And I was like, okay, so this is because
It's his relationship chin scar.
Yeah. The way they film that, like they're just stuck there in the middle of the desert, and they're in this predicament, and he's sitting there, and he's almost like, now she is a teacher, and then we get Lawrence of Arabia showing up, and
when I heard about all these famous people that show up, I was like, this is stupid. But when I watched this, I actually liked all these famous people showing up because it's cool. You get all these historical characters, and it's kind of like a fun little jaunt through history.
See,
a lot of the stuff's remarkably accurate that they do and talk.
Wait
about.
a minute, Pete Mummert.
Okay.
What year did Howard Carter discover the tomb of Tutankhamun?
I'm not saying like all the details, but when we get to Pancho Villa, it's pretty accurate. But there is a lot here that you can kind of be like, hey, that kind of sparked my imagination. I want to learn more about Howard Carter. I want to learn more about this T.E. Lawrence guy.
Sure.
I will say that's fine, and I think that's like sort of like the almost purpose of the show in a way is to the mission statement is to like, hey, get people interested in history and stuff like that. But there was a moment where Indy and his little kid Indy and his teacher are alone in the desert in front of the pyramids. And I was thinking for a second, oh, okay, this will be like literally his first adventure. How is he going to get out of it? Oh, it's Lawrence of Arabia. Never mind.
That's a good point. I see that. But I will say Lawrence of Arabia gives, I think, a spectacularly beautiful speech for a TV show. And he talks to Indy like what the amazing feeling of being an archaeologist. And he says, time stands still. It has no meaning. When you open the tomb, you let in the light. The first light in that place is seen for 3,000 or 4,000 years. And he talks about like, you're the first footsteps that have walked through there since the people who built it. And it's just this wonderful sense of what it could be to be an archaeologist. And I feel like this kind of is what sparks Indy's imagination for the rest of his life. Although Indy immediately takes the wrong hint and he's like, and you get rich, right?
Well, see, I agree with you there. I agree with you. That was a cool speech, and there's a, they do, he says archaeology doesn't steal from the past; it opens it so that everyone may learn from its treasures. And then I thought, on the black market of Marrakesh.
Right. I just have the note: Indy is clearly not listening to Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah.
And then we get this little religious studies minute. Which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it is interesting.
Especially for 1990s.
For 90s TV. That is hardcore,
yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that happens in this episode is, I think, kind of shocking for a major network TV to air in the early 90s as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll get to.
It's hard. I mean, look, I gotta just say, I mean, that I agree with you. That speech was cool, but I mean, this makes the Hardy Boys look like David Lynch.
Yeah.
I mean, it just does. It does.
No, I'm not
It
saying.
does.
I'm not saying it's always perfectly executed. I'm not defending.
And I kind of like,
but I
here's
enjoyed it.
what's tough. I guess one of the things that's hard is they did want to have this educational, to sort of stir up some interest and why you should go to a museum and why they're cool. There's all these stories behind this, which I was a history major. I love that stuff, but I mean, I don't like the Forrest Gumpitude of it.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely, like, Jerry, you don't watch Doctor Who, but Pete, you do, or you have, and there's definitely
only the old ones I've seen. Yeah.
A bit of that feel of, like, I mean, Doctor Who's not always like this, but he'll, like, oh, here's Van Gogh. I'm talking to Van Gogh, or it's Winston Churchill. So there's like a sort of like just kind of dropping in and visiting history sort of thing. But it is kind of like it is. I was thinking Forrest Gump too. It's a sort of like, oh, Indy's just sort of along for the ride, sort of.
That's true.
Tapping these historical figures on the shoulder and sort of visiting them for a second. Sort of like Mr. Rogers or something. Hey, here's Mr. McFeely and here's T.E. Lawrence. What are you doing here in the desert?
No, I agree. The premise feels dumb, and I don't know. I don't know what. I've only watched one of these, so I can't. I enjoyed this a lot, and I would enjoy the rest. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. But
I feel like it should either be like a history thing, or if it's just that, I don't know why it would appeal to an Indiana Jones fan, because he's not yet Indiana Jones, and he's not really doing much. He is really kind of along for the ride to sort of observing stuff for the most part.
Well, one of everybody's favorite parts of Indiana Jones is, when Indy's in South America and he's stealing the Chachapoyan idol. And there's no one famous there. I don't know what that idol is. I've never heard of the Jovitos. I don't know anything about any of the people or the treasures that they're taking or pilfering, and it's riveting.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Howard Carter or
no.
I mean, I just got over the indigestion of Last Crusades. Indy runs into Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
At least that was kind of spooky.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was just kind of weird, and it stopped you in your tracks, and it was spooky, and he didn't. That was that.
Yeah.
Well, would you have liked this more if it were not Indiana Jones? If this were just a kid that goes through history, meeting these famous people, and maybe you had seen this as a kid instead of being in college when this came out.
That's weird. There was that show. Was it Voyagers, with a kid, and he was like with a time traveling guy, and it was like in the late 70s, maybe early 80s or something. And it was that kind of thing, like, hey, hi, Thomas Edison. I'm a kid from the 20th century. Yeah, I don't know. There's something kind of, I don't know if this would inspire me as a kid to learn about Lawrence of Arabia or learn about Pancho Villa necessarily. There's something kind of light about the premise.
Yeah, well, and it's also just like, it gets really hokey where, Lawrence of Arabia is like, Indy, I'm going to need your help. Now, could you
be my special executive in
charge
of snacks?
It's a little bit like you're on a Disney ride.
The
character turns to you and is like, I'm going to need you to help
right.
cheer when we get to this
point. That's it. That is it. And it's kind of like, now don't forget your bristle blocks. We're going to need to get across that bridge. It's just like, and it is like, it's every 9-year-old's fantasy where, an adult comes up to you and like, I heard that you're a great kicker of bedroom doors. You can kick through bedroom doors.
Why, we have a bedroom door over here that needs kicking.
Yeah, no. No one else can get through it. It's just, you don't happen to have your marbles, do you?
Well, I suspect this was one of the problems of the show. Is I can't tell now.
Suspect.
And I want people to tell
I suspect.
Is that I don't know if this was made for 9-year-old kids or it was made for adults, and it feels like it kind of falls somewhere in between, and everyone's a little unhappy with it.
It's like they tried to draw in, either adults or teens who are into Indiana Jones to watch this kids show, and that's not going to fly necessarily.
I guess, you know what? I'm assuming this was family prime time.
It was not. It aired before Monday Night Football. Well, I guess it was family hour prime time, but it was like, which I think was a very poor choice.
I want to say it's right between Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and Murder, She Wrote. It's like it's old timey night on ABC. Is it ABC? Is that what it was on?
I think it was ABC. Yeah. We do get a very nice. So when Larry here takes him to Howard Carter's dig, where he's hoping that eventually they'll find King Tutankhamun, we get a nice callback. We hear the workers in the background are singing the same song that Sala and his men are singing in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, you're absolutely right. What I want to know is, did they re-record that, or did they lift that?
Well, what I want to know is Sala just like a big fan of the golden oldies? Like, is he singing like old timey songs, or did Indy make him sing this because he remembered it from being a kid?
It does. It does the inflection. It's like Oleande, and then yeah. It's, I guess they just call that a melody, but I did notice that. That's why I wondered if it was like a track that they lifted.
I don't know.
It did sound very close. Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
It sounded very close. And speaking of things getting very close, we're about at the 20-minute in part here, and we do have an official whoopee.
Oh, yeah. I wrote that down.
Yeah,
I wrote that too.
Yeah.
This was George Lucas. This was his prequel to Yippee.
Yeah.
It was his prequel to Yippee. I mean, who does that?
Yeah. Nobody.
But I mean, who watches that scene with the kid doing that and goes, all right, everybody, that's a wrap?
You read the line perfectly.
It's interesting because we get this feels, you see a lot of elements here that ended up in the Phantom Menace, I think. But at the same time, which I fully agree with.
Well, we should say a lot of the crew was lifted from these. A lot of the crew went right to the prequels.
Well, I'd say a lot of the silliness was lifted from this. Yeah.
But I feel like they actually, this to me feels a little more like I feel like they handled young Indy, like grade school Indy better than they handled Anakin. Like he feels more
agree.
Like a person.
Yeah. He's Whoopi felt out of place actually because he didn't seem like that kind of goofball kid.
No,
which I expected to hate the kid in this, and I actually quite enjoyed him. And I think.
Well, is he? Yeah. Well, I mean, look. I mean, the bar is so low. We're just. I mean, if we're compared, they did a better job, than they did with Anakin. I mean, I'm just saying we're starting there. So you're like, sure, yeah. Can you, here, kid? Can you kick this ball? Hooray! Is there? Let me ask you: Is young Indy precocious?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just for a second erase all this. Now imagine you've watched, say you've watched, it's like 1985 and you're thinking on Indiana Jones and you're thinking about his childhood. Do you see a young Indiana Jones as precocious?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean,
for real.
If you take an adult and then look at the kid, all the bets are off. It's like you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like you haven't developed it all. So you can be precocious and not end up being precocious as an adult.
Okay. All right.
I guess the other thing is, I mean, it is the guy that invented Indiana Jones that says this was his idea for what Indiana Jones was like as a kid. So I think that's fascinating.
Sure.
I mean, we're getting George Lucas himself writing this.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
And I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's not like someone came in later and kind of put this onto him as this is what he was like.
See, that's what's so amazing about this entire George Lucas thing. And we always talk about this, whether it's Star Wars or choices that are made with Indiana Jones franchise. It is fascinating because he gave us some of the greatest stuff. And I agree with Tommy, when he's not involved, you sometimes wonder, but is it really Star Wars if he's not involved? Is it really
is it fan fiction?
Yes, is it fan fiction? But then again, when you see what he does when he's at the helm, later on, you're like, oh my God, get the steering wheel away from. We've got to get this guy out of the driver's seat. It has to happen. And I think it's fascinating. It is. It's Star Wars is amazing. American Graffiti's amazing. is just incredible. And that guy did this in Phantom Menace, and he signed his name to it.
But he did this the same way he originally planned to do Star Wars, which I think is fascinating, is he didn't direct all these and write all these. He came up with the background and sort of an outline for each one.
Sure.
And then he said, here, someone else write this and someone else direct it,
Yeah.
which was also his original plan for Star Wars. And I think it's interesting to see what came out of that. And so far, we've only seen one, so I don't know.
No, and you're right. And I think it was kind of like, in a way, it was like, this will be a really fun, cool thing to do. Here's the premise. Now you guys go have fun.
Yeah.
And you know,
and they went all over the world filming these, and they had a huge budget,
Sure.
which is cool.
Yeah, drum up all sorts of, you know, yarns about Indiana Jones, which is kind of cool in theory.
Yeah, it is hard to shake the idea. I'll say this again, even though I just said it a minute ago. It's not. You're not quite watching Indiana Jones. You're watching a kid who will someday be Indiana Jones,
right?
But it's not the guy you're into, so it's sort of tough.
No, I agree. I mean, I had that trouble with River Phoenix even, and I thought he was almost perfect as Indiana Jones.
Yes, River Phoenix is. I mean, I'd say don't even talk about River Phoenix in this if we're talking about a kid indie.
I think that's kind of where this came from.
I don't consider this Indiana Jones. This is nothing like Indiana Jones for me. I mean, it's cool that they're like talking about Egypt and that sort of thing is cool. I do like that. I mean, I like, but the nothing about this feels anything like Indiana Jones. And I don't think it's. I mean, I think it's poorly executed. The editing in this is god awful. Like the actual editing, like how you watch scene to scene to scene, and sort of the timing of it is really, really odd.
It does feel very long sometimes.
And it's just the shot to shot. There's like a guy standing and a gun goes off, and then like the guy standing in a different place, or somebody pulls them later. And the thing again, remember, I'm really dumb at movies, so if I notice it, it's egregious and glaring. I hardly ever notice those sorts of things. And the angles are sometimes off or they don't match up. It's supposed to be the same. If I can tell that there's several different takes or they're done in different spots or it was not the same, it's all spliced together, it's not good if I can tell.
Well, speaking of noticing things, did you notice that now that we've arrived at Howard Carter's dig, we get the hero of Raiders of the Lost Ark in yet another dual role?
That's right. Jerry didn't notice.
I did. You know what's funny? I didn't really notice, but I swear to God, I went, God, I kind of know. I wonder if that's. I did swear to God, especially towards the end. I'm like, that's Barranca.
Yeah. So for those who listening at home, Barranca shows up as Demetrius, the I guess the explosives specialist here on the dig.
Yeah.
And as soon as you see him, you kind of go, oh, I wonder who the bad guy is going to be.
Yeah. And he kind of like has this big mustache and he kind of turns to the camera and kind of says,
tries to shoot you in the back.
Yeah. And then we meet another guy that we think might be the bad guy, Rashid Salam,
right?
Who is kind of in charge of the dig underneath Howard Carter.
Oh, I got a note about Howard Carter. Another nerd casting alert. He is not only Tommy Lascelles from The Crown. Anybody watches that? It was a great show. He was also in The Force Awakens as a First Order officer for like one scene. One shot.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Wow.
So I have to let me just.
And I'm a huge nerd because I recognized him within a second. I was like, wait, I'm looking that up. Is that Tommy from The Crown? Oh my God.
You're amazing at that.
Yeah, you're really good at that. So just as a chronology check, so Last Crusade is 1989. This comes out in 1992, and I think it went from 1992 to 1993, I believe, because it didn't do that well. It wasn't that, and it cost a lot of money, and it wasn't really well received.
And no one really watched it.
If you can imagine that. And then I think they brought it back like 1995, 96 or something like that. I think
they made a couple of made-for-TV movies.
Yeah, they did some made-for-TV movies later, and then The Phantom Menace comes out in 1999.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a George Lucas decade.
That's what he's been up to.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, in between, he did the special editions.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow, you're right. Yeah, okay.
He was so busy.
But I guess what I like about this, I mean, there are things I don't like a lot about this Young Indiana Jones business, and I mean, I'm not a rabid fan, but there are things about it I liked a lot, and I think what's interesting is I feel like this is sort of, we're at a transition point here where we're getting a lot of the stuff that still feels very George Lucas
Mm-hmm.
from before, mixed with a lot of stuff that sort of starts to feel like George Lucas that comes later. And I think it's an interesting, like, this is kind of a transition, film between his early stuff and then, the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And you can see, like,
I mean, Exhibit A, Jeepers Creepers.
right.
Thank you for saying that, because I
Right.
have that written down as a note, but with no context. I forget where Jeepers Creepers came
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah, Howard Carter asked Indy if he'd like to help opening this tomb of Ka the architect, and Indy says, "Jeepers creepers, thanks."
Golly.
No, I'm just saying. I know it's old timey, and it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to be. It's really ass chapping. It is supposed to be 1908 because Indy is
Mhm.
9 years old, and he was
Mhm.
born in 1899. So it's 1908. Okay, so when did they, discover King Tut's tomb, Pete?
I don't remember. What
I
year it
believe
was.
it's 1922. Is it not?
Yeah, it was a lot later.
Yeah.
but he hasn't discovered it here.
Right.
He's saying he hopes one day to
I
hopes
see.
one day to
Okay.
find it.
Yeah, and I did
Yeah.
read a little bit about it, and they said he got kind of close, and there was a big
Yeah.
long thing. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right. He hasn't discovered it yet.
So this is kind of I don't know if Howard Carter was in Egypt this early either. I don't
That
know,
is the
but it
first
was-
of a few, key historical figures sort of saying, boy, and I hope one day I find the thing that I'm famous for later
Right.
on.
right.
You know,
Right,
like,
right.
I want to go meet some Bedouins in the desert. How's that going to go? Talk to you later.
But so-
T.E. Lawrence.
who Indy calls Ned.
Yeah.
But they Howard Carter lets Indy help as he and Larry and his tutor
and Mo and Shemp.
Rashid, yeah, all go into this tomb of Ka the architect, and there's a giant sarcophagus, and we get a great toilet lid sound as they open the lid,
Yeah.
and we see a mummy in there.
Yeah. Some good
And,
Indy-ish corpse work in this.
Yeah,
thing.
Mhm.
yeah,
Very Raiders-ish.
and there's a curse that's that they read on the wall. It says, I
I
don't
got
know.
you, Pete. I got you. It
Okay.
says, "He that
Thank you.
enters my tomb, I shall burn with fire."
There you go.
What else are you going to burn them with?
Yeah. Well, there could be like acid or
A hot plate?
hot plate,
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
maybe electricity or something.
Okay.
Like maybe you could, I don't know, fire power, what is it, lightning power? Yeah.
But then
Wrath
they
of
do.
God.
They ask where the treasures are, which is and Howard Carter, in his excitement, says there must be a secret room, and they immediately find like a secret room and start cutting like through
Yeah.
this beautiful wall.
Right. I said,
And they-
Indy learned from the best. His
Yeah,
plundering
yeah.
and his blundering.
Exactly. They're just looking for the treasure here. And eventually they find a like this head that should have a jackal headpiece on it that's missing.
Mysterious.
Well, what's interesting is I believe it's called a head. It's a like actually a headdress, which is an
Oh, yeah,
awful lot
headdress,
like
yeah.
headpiece.
It is like a
Yeah,
headpiece.
it's a lot like a
It
headpiece.
sounds like headpiece of the the headdress of the staff of Ka.
Yeah,
Instead of the-
that was good, Pete. I
Thank
like that. Jeepers
I
creepers.
have like a movie story question. As soon
Okay.
as maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but the one guy goes back in and they find him dead, right? They find him all
Mhm.
like burned up and stuff.
Rashid is
Yeah,
he's all
Rashid. He gets all
and dead.
burned up and it's the curse. And they immediately think, oh, who uses flash powder and stuff? And who had money problems? Oh, Pierre. And I'm like, wait a minute, who's Pierre? Did I miss a section of the thing?
They mentioned him very briefly earlier when he takes their picture.
That felt super
Like when they
weird
fir-
because I
That felt-
absolutely
I-
missed him.
I
Yeah.
had no idea. I had
Yeah,
no
yeah,
idea
good.
what was going on at all, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Gun."
and we've got this
what?
whole little there's like a whole little murder mystery here that I could skip
Yeah.
easily.
Well, I mean, Barranca's there. You know who did it.
But
Yeah.
before we do any of this, I mean, you guys glossed over. They're like, he says, he that enters my tomb, I shall burn with fire. And they're like, meh. And then there's this 9-year-old kid, who's going, it's a curse. And they're like,
oh, I love it. Yeah.
And then, I mean, the whole time
Yeah.
he's like, I told him it was the curse. It's the curse.
Yeah.
What
And you're
part
like,
of Jeepers Creepers do you not understand?
Yeah. Do I need to ride in here on my big wheel? I mean, it's just really weird. You're like, why is so we're drawing the whole thing like it's like, okay, the experts have no idea what they're doing. And 9-year-old Indiana Jones, really knows the behind the curtain sort of thing on life.
Right.
Like, no, it's a curse. What doesn't the expert archaeologist know about this?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, like we know what would happen. They'd be like, could you get that kid out of here? Who invited that kid to the dig? Like he
Indy.
said, it's a
Someday you'll understand that not all problems can be solved with science and archaeology.
But here's a huge spoiler. There may not be a curse.
What?
But Indy, I think it's interesting that Indy immediately thinks there is a curse and there's something supernatural at work.
Yeah.
And maybe this colors his life for the rest of his life, and he's always like finding the supernatural where it's just like maybe not actually happening.
That is I thought about that. Yeah, he got beat. I thought about that because he's so skeptical in every other damn movie. And here,
but
he's
in this,
the
he's
first,
like completely
But here's what's fascinating: is who believes in curses? It's Indy and it's the locals. And then you have the British that quote know better. It's just an interesting thing, but it's like, so who's really right at the end?
And we never actually get.
But
an
that's
answer,
what's so strange. It's like that's what's.
I love that though. It's ambiguous.
But wait, isn't it?
I love how much of this is ambiguous.
But isn't there? I think I forget if I have the chronology right. But all the stuff with Rashid happens and he dies, and they're talking about the curse. And then he and Lawrence and his tutor are having dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation is then he's like, "Oh, but what about the curse and the magic and the thing and Lawrence is sort of like, I kind of made that stuff up just to make life interesting." And he's like, "Oh,
no, that was an amazing quote."
Yeah.
He says, "I often make up stories to make life seem more exciting,
so
more worthwhile."
Is that the moment where Indy's like, "Oh, out of superstitious hocus pocus"?
I think Indy still buys it. I think Lawrence is just trying to come back. But it's interesting because in real life, Lawrence was kind of known for making things up a little.
But you know what's weird about that? He actually says that. Lawrence says that like a confession.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, he's letting down a kid. He's like, "Oh, I made this kid think that things are awesome," and I'm like, not so much.
He's just,
I felt like it went right over Indy's head, but I don't know.
I'm sorry, I just spew mendacities.
Yeah,
He says, "You caught me." It's just he like slinks away off into the desert.
Yeah, I've kind of ruined this kid's life. Now he's gonna believe in every ghost under his bed.
Where's my bike?
God, it's weird.
But then we get this whole little kind of slapstick, comedy of errors, mystery murder hunt. And Lawrence shows Indy his gun, and he says he's going to go after Pierre.
Okay, that's weird. That's a weird scene. That's a totally weird scene. He pulls the gun out like,
yeah.
And then he's like,
but Indy says, "Holy smokes!"
Yeah,
which answers a question we had back in Temple of Doom. Where did Short Round learn to say "Holy smokes"? And I guess Indy taught him.
Wow,
there
are a lot of those. There's like 25,
which I think
of
is good.
those.
I kind of like because they're never called out. It's never like overt or it's never a big deal. But when you think back to Temple of Doom, it's like, oh yeah, Short Round said that.
But that gun scene is really, really strange. I thought he was gonna say like something. I was hoping it would get crazier. He'd be like, "Yeah, well, one of these," and it was kind of like, "Now go get your big wheel." And if you see, take it, kid, take it.
Kind of turning into the pilot from Airplane.
I know. It was really strange. He pulls out the gun and he shows him like, "Looky what I brought."
Yeah.
I can't tell. Is Lawrence treating Indy like an adult, or is Lawrence like a 9-year-old kid, just really like he suffers from like Goliath syndrome? He's actually like 9.
Maybe. I gotta say though, the actor that played Lawrence, I don't know who it is. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was good.
I thought
There's a lot of good acting in
did
this,
a good
actually.
job. Yeah. Jerry's livid.
Yeah.
when you're saying that.
He's eating his hand.
But yeah, we learned then suddenly that it was not Pierre, the photographer, who killed Rashid. It was Demetrius / Barranca / Monkey Man / who knows who he might be next. And we cut back to the museum, and the kids are absolutely just listening with rapt attention to old Indy telling this story.
Now I care.
Please, sir, tell us more.
Yeah.
Video games are lame. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was sitting there and I'm like, those kids have joined MS-13 by now.
Yeah. Or they've been drugged by Indy, so that's why they're still like.
Yeah.
I
They're
did
all,
have.
like,
I
going at it.
had a question here. Why was the mummy holding Demetrius's cane?
Oh, I didn't. Oh,
Is that
was why did he have the plunger?
is that what it
Oh,
was?
I didn't
It
get
was the
that either. Why
plunger.
was
I
that
didn't
there?
get
It was
that.
the plunger for the dynamite.
Yeah. But why
Well,
was
so
it
why
there?
is-
Which is how they
But
knew
why
it was.
is-
I don't know why the mummy
and
was
why is
holding
it like the dude did it and he's like, let me leave a clue.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
This
I don't
will
know.
be boring if
why
I don't
that
give him a
happened.
clue.
Yeah. No one will catch me unless I give him a clue.
That I didn't
That'll
get.
make it a little
Where's
exciting.
that
where's
I
my
didn't get.
Wonder Bread? I can leave a trail. I didn't understand that at all. Like the mummy is clutching, I guess, the dynamite plunger. It was nuts.
Yeah,
It
the
was,
plunger is for the
That was
so
weird.
Yeah, I'm
what's
not
it
sure what happened
doing
there.
there? I mean, like I said, that makes Scooby Doo seem like you know Edgar Allan Poe.
It's like they realized they only had a few minutes in this sequence left, and they had to find out who it was in the next
That's
3
one
minutes.
of the one of the flaws of this
Yeah.
is there are a lot of times where it feels like they want to spend all this time kind of reveling in all the historical stuff, and then there are like 2 minutes left. Like, oh, we got to wrap this up, and they put a bunch of like exposition here that doesn't.
Poochie
it's not
died on the
great.
way back to his home planet at the end.
Yeah. Which, speaking of, I like that the kids asked to hear the rest of the story, and Indy says, "Okay, but it has to be quick. I have to get home to feed my cat Henry."
Oh, yeah.
What that actually
I thought that was actually pretty funny.
That was really funny because I thought to myself, the next cat I have, I'm naming it Jerry. How weird is it if you have a pet with your
Yeah.
name?
Well, is it
Yeah.
his name or is it his dad's name? I sort of thought
Well,
he was like
doesn't-
naming
I mean,
I thought the cat was Henry
I liked his
Sr.
last pet though. Indiana was his name too.
Yeah.
So like one gave him his name, so he gave his name back. To
I
the
know,
next-
which
All
is
right, next animal.
that was actually
Yeah.
without any exaggeration, that was my favorite part of this entire show. Is
There
that he
you
has
go.
There
a
we
cat
go.
named
Okay.
Henry, and I was like, God,
A little positivity.
that's hysterical and weird. And I thought about, like, can you imagine you come home, you're like, oh, hey, Jerry, how's it going? Oh, you ready for a little wet food, Jer?
You're kind of like that anyway, Jared.
Yeah, you're always ready for wet food.
Start yelling, Jerry, get over here. Stop sniffing those other dogs' asses.
So now he's telling the kids a story, and the kids are like, "What happened to the Jackal? Did you ever get the Jackal?" And he's like, "That's a long story." But so we wind up now we're suddenly in Mexico, and it's 8 years later, and Indy is now a teenager, and he's in Santa Fe for spring break, and decides to hitchhike down to the Mexican border to get some action. And they're looking at pictures of Mata Hari in the back of a pickup.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I
what
have
they're
a lot
doing-
of questions about this though.
Sure.
Because and again, we've seen Last Crusade, but maybe people watching this TV show about historical figures don't know so much Indiana Jones or something. But he's living in New Jersey. He's a New Jersey resident, but he's just visiting New Mexico. So they lived in Utah in 1912. So what brought them back to New Jersey? And why are they back in New Jersey? Like Here's what bugs
just
me.
his dad. That's where his dad was teaching, and then he was on teaching maybe on a sabbatical.
But the fact that there's no, if the show is supposed to be bringing in Indiana Jones fans, if that's the hook, then even just a casual guy who just saw Last Crusade a few years ago is going to say, "Wait a minute, I thought they lived in Utah. What's all this New Jersey business?" Like I don't get it.
Wait, I don't understand. I had a ton of questions. Where is Indiana Jones' dad from? Where is he from? Scotland. Okay, so now, but now they're in. Yeah, but he was born in New Jersey. Where is he teaching? His dad. Where does his dad teach?
Well, he was teaching at Princeton at the beginning.
He was teaching. So he's a professor at Princeton.
Mhm.
Indy's dad. Now,
Yeah.
okay, and
guess
then
so.
he later goes to
Utah.
and then, but then he's in.
I don't. Do we know he's back in New Jersey now, Tom?
He says it like 17 times. I got to
Oh,
get
he's
back
gotta
to New
get-
Jersey to go to school.
Well, maybe
or
that was
whatever.
just home too. Like maybe that was just like after their mom.
But then,
died,
but
maybe
then, like
oh, let's
I guess
Henry
get
so.
out
in
wherever we're
Last
from.
Crusade, Henry lives in upstate New York.
Well, people move.
No, I thought Henry
And
was in
he's-
New Jersey in Last Crusade or something. Or didn't we?
thought he was
Or
in
it was
New
like
York.
I
not
thought he was.
clear, and we had fun arguments about it and stuff.
No, we
and-
did, but he said he had to come down to the city, didn't he?
Yeah, because he wasn't.
He had
yeah,
to come
yeah, he was
down,
somewhere
I
outside
think.
of New York.
No, but
City,
Henry.
like
No,
up
I'm
in
saying Henry.
Westchester.
Henry Senior, wasn't he? Isn't the thing? I don't know.
Exactly. Well, and where does he teach? So that's that whole. Where does Henry Senior teach?
Well,
So I'm so
We
confused.
don't know that. I don't know if we know afterwards, but like you could, if your mom dies, and maybe they go back to where the grandparents are, so they can help raise Indy.
Mhm.
Like maybe it makes sense to go back to where the mom.
I don't
might
have a
be
problem with
from,
him
or where
living in New Jersey again after Utah. I have
Okay.
I have a problem as an Indiana Jones fan who's trying to get into the show and then not having it. And I'm being a little pedantic and a little bit, paying too much attention to like this dumb stuff. But there's the
Yes.
definition of pedantic. But yeah, it just seems weird they don't even mention you. Like one of the, the latest Indiana Jones film opened in Utah with teenage Indy in Utah, living in Utah with his dad.
Mhm.
And it's like no mention of Utah. I don't know. It's a little weird.
No, I mean, and it's 3 years later.
Yeah.
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 I mean, they're very close to the Last Crusade.
Well, as
That's
somebody
what
who
I'm saying,
moved like every 2 years of his life around the country, at this
Mhm.
to me is like
That's
this makes
not-
perfect sense. But I guess most people didn't do that,
Yeah.
so maybe it's unusual that it makes sense.
Well,
I
it's
can
just
let it
it's a
go.
big deal in Last Crusade. That's all we're saying. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you this because you glossed over this, Pete. So Indy went down to the border on spring break.
Mhm.
In 1915 to have quote a little fun with the senoritas.
That's what the Matahari calendar's for.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what? I mean, does that make sense? First of all, when did spring break start?
Spring break does not sound like an early 1900s term.
I
agree.
actually like I could see if it was like I don't know, like vernal hiatus or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Indy's probably the guy that started the whole like Cabo like
Yeah, he's.
Yeah.
I would think. Well, see,
Cancun
they're going to
tradition.
do that.
This is the original
They
one. He was the
probably do
original-
that. Yeah, he's gonna run into
We
a
should do
baby
this
Sammy.
every year.
He's
Every
gonna
spring.
run- every spring, he's gonna run into a baby Sammy Hagar. Ah, my God, they're gonna start a tequila company together.
I just invented the bikini. Hey, Franklin Bikini, you know what you should do with that leftover material?
Totally.
Don't make a full bathing suit out of it.
I'll tell you what, we have so much Jello that was brought here by mistake. Let's put it in a kiddie pool, and we'll erect a slide by the beach. We'll call them Jello shots, and oh my God, I don't know. I don't get. Anyway, so he's going to have a little fun with the senoritas. I guess that's what he does.
And he happens to show up in town in little town of Columbus, New Mexico, right when and all these incidents that are going to occur in the rest of the movie are based on real historical incidents. And right as he shows up in Columbus is when the Columbus border incidents, the Battle of Columbus, I think they called it later, happens in March of 1916 when Pancho Villa and his men cross over from Mexico and raid a town on the American side of the border. And Indy happens to be there when it happens, and he sees one of Pancho Villa's men stealing some dresses from a woman, and he takes off after the guy, and they end up catching him, and he's taken, basically kidnapped by Pancho Villa and his men.
That whole scene is really, really strange, and I would encourage anyone who cares at all about this to watch it again. It's really weird, like the way it's shot and edited is really odd. It's like the guy gets shot, and then they show Indy standing in the middle of the street, and then like, we got to get out of here, and then it's like everybody runs, and it's like pandemonium, and you're like, oh great, and then there's like somebody yelling from upstairs, and then a guy with a shotgun, and then they show Indy completely standing still again.
Yeah.
And then everybody's running, and then they show it's cut so weird. And then Indy's like in the middle of the street, completely standing still during this gun battle that makes
Yeah.
no sense, and like all these guys are, these rebels have come into the town, and it's just really weird. And then of all things, he's going to chase after like 50 guys because they stole the dress, and he's all
Yeah.
alone, and it's really weird. He's chasing the one guy, and they're going down the
Right.
going on the horses, and there's one guy left, and it's almost like a really weird stalemate with the dresses, and he pulls the one dress off, and then he still follows him, and like 3 minutes goes by, he pulls the second dress off.
Yeah.
Don't you guys have guns?
But
This is all
it's kind
weird.
of, I like it because I think we get some more evidence that the fever dream is in place here as well, because it's kind of like Han Solo chasing the stormtroopers. He chases a couple of them, and he rounds a corner, and all of a sudden it's a whole giant
Oh, yeah.
squad of stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's true.
Here we have the same thing here.
That's true. Did there's a line in here, and I'm confused. Does serving chilies real hot, is that a euphemism for sexual intercourse?
We'll never find it. I was going to say, that's the weirdest part of that scene, even before
Yes.
the shootout happens. That whole scene is that's David Lynch right
Yes.
there.
I think it. Yeah.
They cut to this
That
guy
is-
in
it is.
shadow and specifically don't show his face. And you're like, oh, who's this Mr. Oh, it's just a guy. Now they're just showing him. It's not even weird. He's just like,
No,
a
it's
dude.
not, and it's
And he
really
keeps talking
weird.
about the hot tamale. They serve their,
It is-
their peppers really hot.
I think it is. I think it's all innuendo.
It's
I
and
guess
he's like,
so.
it's like, go see, who is it? The Matahari. Go see Max. Go
Yeah, or
see.
someone, yeah.
I think it's Max. Go see Max.
Mhm.
And
Or he says not to.
Yeah,
He says
better
that might be
stay
a
away
little
from
much
there.
action
don't go
for
see.
you.
Yeah, stay away from
Yeah.
Max, because they serve chilies real hot, and then they kind of look at him, and go, ha, 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 hey, thank you, soldier.
Yeah, which is. I mean, think about it. This is like a kid show, and you've got these kind of like
Yeah.
salacious, like. It's
Mommy, can
interesting,
I
like
try
some of the stuff
peppers?
that got in here.
Go to your room.
And you know what? That's funny. It would, see, if that was that is super David Lynch, but it's actually not cool. It's just like it's just clumsy and odd, and you're like, what is going on?
So we have this whole scene is directly referenced in Crystal Skull, which I think is interesting.
Mhm.
In Crystal Skull, Indy tells Mutt that he rode with Pancho Villa, and Mutt's like, "What?" I mean, he actually says something else, but
Mhm.
and Indy says, "Well, I was actually kidnapped." He says he rode with Pancho Villa, and then he says, "Well, I was actually kidnapped," and he says that he rode against Victoriano Huerta, and which turns out not to be true. Which I think this is really interesting, is because he is kidnapped by Pancho Villa, so that part of his story to Mutt is true. But Victoriano Huerta was deposed in 1914, and this is 1916. So I'm wondering, is Indy embellishing the truth with Mutt? Like, is Indy kind of take on the same characteristics of Lawrence,
Oh, maybe.
and he starts making things up for the rest
Or he
of
got
his
into
life?
those hot peppers eventually, and now his memory's not what it
Maybe.
used to be.
Yeah,
Brain's a little big.
yeah.
What's weird is so like Pancho Villa saves Indiana Jones's life.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm just supposed to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he stops his
Yeah.
men from executing him and some other guys
Yeah.
just for the heck. Like, yeah, this isn't
Right.
who we are or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. He's not really kidnapped. Is that what he said? See that? Yeah. That kind of my heart dropped a little bit when I thought about it. They're like, oh, this is actually referenced in Crystal Skull.
I think that's okay because, I mean, when I saw Crystal Skull, I didn't remember this at all. So it's just like, oh, and he's just talking about stuff from the past. Oh, different people he's met. Okay, fine.
Yeah. I kind of I feel like all these things are pretty subtle in this,
Mhm.
like all these callbacks and all these things and later callbacks.
Well, you know
which
what? I
kinda
don't
like. Like,
understand. Why does the Belgian guy think that he's supposed to shoot Indy?
Oh, he misunderstands that he doesn't speak the Spanish so good. So the guy's like, hey, if he moves, shoot him. He's like, oh, I guess I got to shoot him. Oh, well, that's horrible, but I'll do it.
So
yeah,
that was the gag?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I don't know
yeah.
why it's there. It doesn't go
Yeah, I don't know
anywhere.
why. It just, that's,
Yeah.
it just, you're like, huh. And he's
Yeah.
like, no.
A lot of this is weird.
Yeah, it's just like, And then the guy's like, okay, I guess I thought you said I should shoot him.
Now I won't.
Yeah.
It's,
A lot of this feels kind of like George Lucas wanted to remake The Wild Bunch. Like this part of the show feels a lot like a very kid-friendly version of The Wild Bunch. Like they're going to go attack this fortress city and against impossible odds, and then they've got the U.S. government chasing them.
Yeah.
It's kind of
That's one thing.
interesting.
You mentioned the government. Like this is supposed to be a show kind of drawing people into history and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it's weird to me that like we get this whole big action sequence where, biplanes and horses are attacking the Mexicans and everything. And it's this big hullabaloo. And me, who's not up on my history, I literally didn't know what was going on. And I've been to college and everything. So like it's weird. They explain it later after all this, but it's a little weird that going into this action scene, you actually don't know who any of the characters are, like what their role is in history or anything.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because the bad guys in this are the Americans.
Right.
Like I think this was amazing. Like this is what I say. There's some amazing stuff for, 1992. Like it feels very, anti-colonialism, very like we're fighting with these, this band of rebels, and the bad Americans are the bad guys in this. And over the Americans are shown to be the bad guys in this. So I think it's fascinating.
But then what's really strange is that whole thing turns into like the end of Won't Get Fooled Again. Where they're like, don't you
Right.
understand about revolutions? You meet
Yeah,
the old
yeah.
boss, same as the new boss. You're like,
yeah.
so it just turns into this whole like, so now what? Like
Yeah.
all revolutions,
No chickens for anybody.
they just, exactly. They just keep changing the names, but they keep taking your
Well,
chickens.
I kind of like that. Is this whole show is very ambiguous.
It is.
Like you don't know which side you should come
That
down
now
on. And I don't think Indy
that
does
part
either.
was interesting. I agree. That was interesting. It's just a lot of the rest of this is that was an interesting part, and it would be cool to see. You're like, oh, so that kind of shapes Indy's worldview a little
Mhm.
bit.
And this whole thing, he's not immediately like siding with the Americans who are attacking them. He's actually siding, like while he never shoots at an American in this movie, he's siding against them.
Well, that's what's
the Mexican
interesting
rebels
is
who just crossed the border and attacked an American.
and so
town.
Indy could be charged with treason.
Yeah, sedition. or
Yeah,
something,
for like 4 days.
Yeah. And
And
and so then we get oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, it's interesting. He kind of realized, he's like, well, this isn't my war. And then he's like, let me go fight my war. And then they talk about World War I, and you're like, that's a war that has meaning. And it's really kind of, I
Right.
know I'm getting a little bit ahead, but since we're talking about that,
Yeah,
it's like, you're like,
interesting.
that is actually interesting. It's like, did that war really have meaning? It's like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
not at all. It's kind of what,
Yeah.
or I suppose debatable, but not like it certainly didn't feel like that. Maybe it's not remembered such that way, I guess.
Right.
As a matter of fact,
And
it's
it's-
just an armistice at the end. All right, go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of if it like World War I, there's a lot of ambiguity in this, and you don't really ever know who are the good guys because everyone's kind of a bad guy, but nobody's that much of a bad. Like everyone, it's just kind of like, well, life is made up of a bunch of different kinds of bad guys,
Yeah.
and just kind of like the Belgian guy says, the only rule is try to stay alive,
Yeah.
and it's a very kind of nihilistic TV show for kids in 1992,
Yeah.
like which I think is extraordinary.
Kids are crying over all the chickens. Never had any
Yeah.
chickens, they all just keep stealing the chickens.
Yeah. Yeah. But we get our buddy Barranca shows
Yeah.
up again, who is now a gun runner who's supplying Pancho Villa with guns. But it turns out he's also a double crosser, and he's secretly, and this is what makes him evil, he's working with General Pershing and the Americans, and telling them what Pancho Villa is doing and kind of selling him out. But when he's over by Indy, he says Imche, Imche,
Yeah.
which Tom, I know you remember very well from Raiders and Last Crusade.
I'm the one who watched the
And
movies, and I
it-
remember Emshi.
Yeah, Imshi. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Indy immediately says, "Oh, I didn't. You speak Arabic." And the guy, takes off.
Actually, no. What he says is, "Were you in Egypt?"
oh
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what's a little
Yeah.
confusing. I'm like, why is he assuming that he was in Egypt just because he speaks Arabic?
Well, the Egyptian Arabic is different than most other kinds of Arabic.
So Imshi. Can
I'm
we get a
assuming it's
ruling on
Egyptian
this?
Arabic. I don't know.
Can we get a ruling on Imshi?
I actually think
No,
I
I'm
should
just
say
kidding.
before we get letters that he clearly says Imshi in this, and I think Sala and what we were hearing in Raiders and Last Crusade was Epshi.
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's a
So
You're
good
there
right.
is a
point.
difference.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There is a moment right before that where Barranca turns into Matt Hooper from Jaws because they're messing with the dynamite. Damn it, Martin! You mess with this dynamite, it's gonna blow up.
You know, there also I got a little confused about this whole train blasting into the wall with the dynamite thing, because like if they're going to switch the track and put the train into the wall, right? That's kind of they have to sort of blow a hole through the fortress, right? And I'm thinking, so that means that there's a railroad track that goes smack dab
right
into the wall. Yeah, it's like that's like someone
it
was
ends
like
right in front of the wall.
Like how like Wile E. Coyote, where they draw they draw a tunnel.
Yeah,
I was like, why is there a train track that goes straight into a wall?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of
that was
too.
like the main plot. Like, how are we going to, breach the city wall? Well, we'll just ride the train into it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a spur line that ended right next to the wall.
that is what it was.
Stuff.
That's kind of what
it was. It is. You're right.
But in movies, those are made to be smashed through.
Yes, it's true.
It happened in Silver Streak. It happens here.
Right before then, we get another very famous cameo. We get George Patton walks into a bar where Indy and Pancho Villa's gang are all standing and drinking, and he takes a shot of tequila, and he says, "God bless the United States of America and death to all our enemies, including that low down greaser Pancho Villa." And like everyone's like,
yeah.
And I think it's fascinating that they show him making a racist remark, and B, like he's obviously the bad guy here. Like George Patton.
Right.
It's amazing. It's an amazing thing in this show.
And he gets one of those lines too. He's like, "You watch out for that George Patton. He's gonna go places.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna be one of the key figures in whatever war comes after this war to end all war."
It's interesting though, because this is based on a real story. Patton had a group of guys, like while Pershing was chasing after Pancho Villa all through Mexico after this raid on this New Mexican town. Like he invaded Mexico, what they call the punitive expedition, for a few weeks. And George Patton was actually his aide. And Patton went out with some guys in a Dodge touring car, and Patton shot 3 guys.
Really?
Tied him to the car like this in real life, and they called him
that
a
was
bounty
the thing.
killer.
Wow,
yeah, it kind of
that
made
is
his reputation, I think. So I think that
he's an American hero.
That what's weird, that bar fight, that showdown it really takes a page from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, they just like the way they
does.
kind of shoot that. It's like close-ups on faces and one face to the other face to the other face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That,
one guy
again, though,
looks-
it's really, really weirdly edited, and it makes no sense. Like a guy flies through the window, and then you see like Pierre is sitting there, right? Is it Pierre?
Or
The Belgian
Remy.
guy?
Remy.
Yeah, you see the Belgian guy, and then like Indy pulls him through the window. And meanwhile, all the guns are being shot, and you're just like, none of this doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's kind of chaos. I kind of like this. I kind of thought this was okay.
Okay.
There's one time, Jerry, where I did notice the editing and the shooting was very strange. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
We should point out that Patton, the guy who played Patton, later on played Nixon in a Doctor Who episode.
Oh wow!
There you go.
He's
Yeah,
a very versatile actor.
Yeah. all of history's heroes.
Yes,
he's
yes.
got on his resume.
Yeah.
I still think it's fascinating that Patton's portrayed in such a racist, unpleasant way.
Yeah, just a jerk,
Pretty
bulldog, murderer.
But then we get the scene where Pancho Villa and they're going to take the train and blow up the wall for the city of Guerrero so they can take it over and get enough money to pay Bronca for all these weapons that they need.
Oh, can I interrupt for 1 second? Because there was one actual very subtle Raiders callback.
Oh.
When they're sitting around talking about why are we revolting? Why are we doing this? And Pancho Villa comes in. He's like, it's for this. And he's holding up this thing of dirt. He's like, so we can fight for it. So this can be ours, whatever and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And he lets it fall through his fingers. And it's just like Indy with the bag of sand. And it's just like Belloc with the sand in the ark.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
That was actually really cool. Yeah.
That was a great scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That was good.
I did like that.
And it's funny that Pancho Villa says we're fighting for this pitiful piece of earth. And he tells Indy to go back to his rich country. He says, "You're free.
Yeah.
Go back to your rich country." And that's when Indy runs
you put
after
it
him and
that
says he
way.
wants to join him.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Because I don't know if he's just being rebellious or like I mean, like literally, or
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
think
what
he got
made
to
him
him. I think he,
make that decision.
yeah.
But I think it's a nice moment. I think there are a lot of nice moments in this, Jerry.
Okay, Peter.
So yeah, we're on the train now, and Remy the Belgian is on a flat car loaded with explosives, and he's got a cigar in his mouth. He's about to light the fuse. And their other friend, I don't remember what the other friend's name was.
No
Me
one
neither.
does. Yeah.
He needs to, before they smash into the wall, he has to flip the switch on the track.
Mhm.
And as he's about to flip the switch, he gets shot just as he's about to turn the switch, so the train will go onto the spur track and blow up the wall. So Indy has to race up on his horse and actually switches the train over to the other track so they can take the city, which is interesting because Indy to this point has sort of just been a follower along.
Right.
And he's this, by taking this action, he single-handedly causes Pancho Villa to win this fight.
Yeah.
And a lot of people to get killed, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting.
And then he shoots a
Yeah.
guy.
And then he shoots a guy.
Yeah.
It's, yeah,
apologizes.
it's
And he
really
immediately
odd.
apologizes.
Which I love, yeah.
I didn't mean
He's
to
like,
do that. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Are you hurt? And then the guy immediately gets up and starts to aim his gun
Yeah.
at Indy, and Remy intervenes.
Yeah. But then immediately after that, like the firefight continues and stuff, and you see Indy like firing and stuff and shooting at people. But you're like, oh wait, why is he shooting? He's not into killing anybody. He like just shot a guy and apologized to him. He's like, he's never killed anybody before. He doesn't want to, but he's like
Maybe it's just
firing
fun
his
to
gun.
shoot. Yeah.
It's just
I
fun
think
to
that's
shoot.
I want that to be the answer because I feel like if I was in that position, I'd be like, everyone's shooting guns. I guess I'll shoot this gun.
Yeah.
All right, well, watch out, everybody.
Although, is this the gun that he has all through the series? Because when the guy hands him the gun, when the guy gives him the gun, you get this very kind of magical moment, and Indy looks at it. And is this the gun that he keeps? I don't know enough about guns, but
I'll never
it'll be
watch this
interesting to
gun
know
again.
if this is the gun that he, yeah.
I think that's what he's named his gun. Holy smokes!
That'd be sad. Doesn't he lose that gun at some point?
He loses it, and Willie throws it out the window in Temple of Doom.
Oh, that's right.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! Yeah.
Also, it's not even the gun that he has in Raiders.
Oh, that's
then,
right.
if
That's right. It
if
couldn't be the
that's
same. Yeah. But then
Weird.
it's interesting because the U.S. forces now, Pershing's troops all arrive in Guerrero after Pancho Villa's forces take it. And this is also based on a real battle. And they call this the last true cavalry charge in American history.
Oh, wow.
When, they came in, Pershing came in with the horses, and they actually routed Pancho Villa's forces, and Pancho Villa got shot in the knee, but he
Oh, wow.
escaped. And this was the closest the Americans ever came to capturing him. So kind of both sides kind of called this a win, even though it really wasn't for anybody.
You should say the other guy.
Yeah.
Well, then they attack William Randolph Hearst's hacienda.
Yeah. Which also
And
happened in real life.
I am totally lost.
I'm confused by this too, and it's
I'm
because
just-
I don't study history at all. So I could have this totally wrong. But wasn't Hearst famous for playing up the conflict and to sell newspapers and stuff?
Well, in the Spanish-American War, he was.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so that's a different thing. Okay,
Yeah, but he lived in San Francisco, and he had the big castle down on the coast in San Simeon, which you and I both love, Jerry.
Yeah.
But his dad had inherited, or his dad had somehow been in cahoots with the tyrannical government of Mexico, and he had this huge hacienda and ranch in Mexico that William Randolph got. And Pancho Villa actually did take it over during the revolution. And William Randolph Hearst got so angry that he started attacking Pancho Villa and all his papers after this.
Is that what?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know why it's an interesting little scene. I don't know why it's in here, unless to show that it's here that Indy becomes disillusioned. While
And
they're
it's funny.
ransacking his
Yeah.
hacienda, Indy becomes disillusioned, and he says, well, this isn't my war. He says, I'm a gringo. And you're like, you're just figuring that out now?
Well, and it's right after Pancho Villa turns to Indy and says all this wealth, and he doesn't even live here, talking about William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah.
And that's when Indy has this crisis of conscience. And he's like, wait, I want all this wealth.
yeah. Wait, if I stick with these guys, they're going to steal all my stuff if I ever get any stuff.
I don't know what that scene does for the
I'm not
point
sure
of the-
either.
Yeah.
I took it more as like they're ransacking this place where there's nobody even there, and like, are they even involved in like the conflict? They're just like, yeah, they're rich people,
Yeah.
but they're not, doing anything to anybody immediately. It just seems weird, like they're messing up the stuff.
But
And they might seem like a bunch of bandits to Indy at that point. Like,
which they
they're
kind of
not-
are.
This isn't part of their revolution. This is just being jerks.
And that's kind of nice because that's a real life. Like when you're 16, you're super idealistic, and you're like, you should be fighting for the people. And if you're like 40, like a lot of these bandits, you're like, hey, I'm taking this cool projector.
Look what I got.
Yeah, they watched the movie.
Yeah,
right?
they watched the movies in the
and
basement.
with Indy interpreting for everybody,
up,
Yeah. But so is that
things about? Oh, go ahead.
Is that scene sort of setting us up or sort of bolstering this whole president's rise and fall, but they all steal your chickens?
Oh, maybe.
Is that what it is? Like, is that because that's where Indy becomes disillusioned there, and he's like, "This isn't, this isn't my war," sort of thing.
Because all the guys start shooting the screen too.
Yeah.
They start shooting the screen because they realize that
they're bad mouthing.
Indy's, they're bad mouthing Pontiff. Yeah,
Pershing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess.
Or they're like the people who saw like the Great Train Robbery, the first movie, and they thought they were going to get hit by a train. So they see guys with guns and they start shooting at them.
Yeah. So it's interesting though, as everybody's looting the house, Indy sees a picture, and I think this is a picture of Millicent, William Randolph Hearst's wife, and he sees her picture in a frame, and he takes it out of the frame and puts it in his pocket.
See, I think that's Max. I think that's Max, and I
was hoping it was Marion Davies, but I don't know why he would have a picture of any of those people in his house that his wife visits.
Yeah, right.
I think he's trying to rub himself with some of them hot chilies.
Yeah. But why is he taking this picture? Is he like, this belongs in a museum, I'm going to preserve it? Or is this just like Indy, like, this lady's hot, I'm taking this picture?
Or is he going to mail it to William Randolph Hearst? Like, hey, we're ransacking your place and I feel bad about it. And this picture.
Maybe that's his idea. Maybe that's how pornography worked back in the day.
Yeah, you just steal a neighbor's picture. You do unspeakables to it.
He's like, nobody will know I have this daguerreotype. Let me put it.
Yeah.
Then you get the stereoscopic stuff and you go bananas. That whole apparatus in your pants.
Why does this have pepper stains all over it?
Put this down my chaps. Oh my God. I don't get any of that. I don't know who it is. I don't know why he takes it.
I'm not sure. And a lot of this is very ambiguous. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But as they're riding away from the hacienda, they pass this man, and Pancho Villa's men are stealing the guy's chicken.
Right.
And this is when this part comes where he says he talks about he rode with Juarez and he lost all his chickens, and then when Porfirio Diaz became president, he lost all his chickens, and he keeps talking about it. Everyone who's president, he loses all his chickens, and he says, presidents rise and fall, they all steal your chickens. The only thing to change is the name of the man who takes them. And it's a very profound line.
Yeah. He should invest in something other than chickens, maybe. Something a little harder to steal.
Yeah. It is, but I wonder, is that George Lucas editorializing right there? Like, is that George Lucas saying, because famously kind of a countercultural figure.
Mm-hmm.
I think for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think
that
so.
Makes sense.
Yeah, It is a pretty heavy message actually for right before Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Or if you're the kid watching it, like right before you have to go to bed, for school
you're
the
just
next
laying
day.
awake all night.
And Monday,
Doesn't matter. No more chickens.
Yeah. Your eyes are wide open.
Yeah.
What really does matter in life?
Can't sleep. Pancho Villa will eat me.
My chicken is always going to be
Pancho Villa will
stolen.
eat me.
My chicken's always going to be stolen. See, I like that. I think that's great.
You might as well choke the chicken now. Well, I have this weird old timey picture.
Pictures of Lily. See, that's 2 The Who references in one.
That was
episode.
pretty good.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy.
I like it.
So we kind of come to the close. The episode is just about to end, and we only have like 3 minutes left. And I'm like, how are they going to end this? But Remy comes up and says he's decided he's going to leave. This isn't his fight either, and he's going to go back to Europe and fight in World War I for Belgium. And Indy says he sees things clearly now, and that's the war that has to be fought. And it's interesting. Like he's like, this, I guess this doesn't mean anything here, but that one's important.
Yeah.
Right.
And he tells Remy that he's going to ride off with him, and they're going to go to Belgium together.
Right. Which is really interesting. So does that
Mhm.
because we also find out that Indy fights in World War II.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's
So
like Indy's always, which is funny because in the movies, I don't picture Indy as being an idealist of any kind. But maybe this is how he lost his idealism.
Maybe.
Maybe this is why he's so cynical and kind of hard.
Hey, where to get to bureaucratic fools? Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which I kind of like that. Like you can see this kind of turning him into that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he before he rides off with Remy at sunrise, he has one last thing to do, and he rides over into Barranca's house.
He's like, oh yeah, we didn't have a climax yet.
Yeah, so in the last like 2 minutes of the episode, he gets to Barranca's house and he sneaks around in his house and finds the Jackal headdress, the headpiece of the staff of Ka, and finds it in a bureau. And as he's doing that, Barranca shows up and attacks him.
This is what I'm wondering. So Barranca keeps his scores of priceless artifacts in the kitchen near his zoodle maker.
Yeah.
Right above a giant cellar filled with explosives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as he's fighting a young punk who's robbing him, he sets fire to his entire house intentionally.
Yeah.
Like
it
with
doesn't
glee.
even care.
Yeah.
None of this, I don't get this at all. And again, I'm going to say it's edited so bizarrely.
This is the scene that was really weird. This is like,
I agree.
It's really
like they had
weird.
one guy to film or something, and they tried to shoot it to make it look like there were two people fighting or something.
Yeah.
And it's like
Strange,
they totally
yeah.
ran out of time and had to tack this on in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
Like,
And
it doesn't make any-
explain this to me. So they're wrestling. He pulls out his little clippy claw. Barranca pulls out his, and he goes click, click, click. And then,
Barranca's got a fake arm. Like
he's got a fake arm, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, someone above starts shooting a machine gun?
No, Barranca, after Indy throws him down into the pit that's on fire and Barranca catches on fire, he's down there with he's got a machine gun down there because he's a gun runner. And he starts shooting up at Indy with a machine gun.
That's what I didn't understand. And then Indy runs out of the house.
And as he runs out, the whole house explodes.
Yeah.
And Indy lands on the ground, and he's got the Jackal next to him. He's rescued the Jackal, and then Barranca's metal hand comes flying out of the explosion and lands right next to him, showing that maybe the curse of the Jackal was fulfilled.
So the whole, it's exactly like the opening scene, off the coast of Portugal.
Portugal
in Last Crusade.
Yeah,
You got the God,
exactly
that was so weirdly filmed.
Only the bad guy's defining characteristic survived.
So then we got Indy and Remy. Indy shows up just as Remy's leaving, and they have a nice little moment and ride off into the sunset. And now we're back to old Indy with the kids.
Right.
And the kids are like, ooh,
and that's how I invented pudding.
Yeah.
Have a cup, kids.
And the kids are like, where's the Jackal? Where's the Jackal? And he'll no longer call him old man.
What?
Like, where's the Jackal, sir? And he like, all right. And he kind of moves him over with his cane and he points to a display case and the Jackal's in there. And then the thing that I really enjoyed this, but the thing that made me want to turn it all off and discuss happens at the very end when Indy's walking out of the museum and there's a stairway with a banister.
Oh, God.
And when he looks around to see if anyone's looking, and when they're not, he slides down the banister backwards.
He's an adventurer.
Whoopee!
He's that was a yip whoop. It was like, So did you? I actually didn't mind that much. I was like, he's 93, whatever.
Would any version of Indiana Jones after like 9 years old would like Harrison Ford ever go down the banister just for the heck of it?
No,
backwards,
not like that.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna say now that we've reached the end that this has nothing to do with Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones.
It really feels like it doesn't.
Yeah, it just it just has nothing.
You sound
to do.
angrier about it than I feel. I don't hate this, but I don't feel strongly about it. I don't.
This is like
I'm happy for anybody who likes it.
It's like a Lifetime movie.
It does feel like so much like that. Yeah.
It's like a Lifetime movie.
It was at all like a Lifetime movie. It had some light Murder, She Wrote moments, but it had some weird nihilist, searing, kind of deep, dark, ambiguous moments.
So here's what's tough about. So the problem with it is execution.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. It's like there are some good ideas in there. I agree with you. There are some cool ideas and some good, but it's like it's just it's executed poorly.
I wonder if they just tried to cram too much into the time they had.
Yeah, they definitely
It's
did
like
that.
everything feels very kind of light and fast with a lot of like really obvious TV beats to it and stuff.
Yeah.
This is also the pilot, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if the later episodes keep, are similar, or if they kind of tie.
We should
make it
say
tighter.
clearly, as you're saying that, we don't intend to watch every episode of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and talk about them on a podcast.
We don't?
No,
No.
this is a special.
I thought Jerry was asking for it earlier.
Jerry, you can go do that yourself in the
We do
backyard.
well. We
Bring an
do,
apple.
and we do intend to watch Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah. And the banana
cartoon.
splits.
No,
Yeah, and the
but
banana split.
I do want to say we will watch some more of these. I don't know
Yeah,
how
no,
many more of these.
I bet we
and
will,
we will make
yeah.
Jerry furious and have fun with Jerry's anger. And
I will take every
uncomfortableness.
one of them as its own thing, as I will the
Okay.
movie. Yes, if one of these happens to be good, I'm happy to say that was great. But if
Or
you
the odds.
watch 5 minutes of this and watch 5 minutes of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you're gonna be
It's not,
like,
yeah.
Right. No,
you're gonna be
yeah.
like, what are we
Whiplash.
doing?
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you can. Yeah.
I just didn't want to confuse people into hey, before they do Crystal Skull, they're going to do the entire Indiana Jones.
Right. No, we're not. Yeah. We will be back someday with Crystal Skull,
But see, this is what's interesting. Do we think that because it's on television, it's just supposed to be a lot worse? Because we
Well-
talk about an enormous budget, you still have George Lucas producing it.
There was not a ton of excellent TV in the early 90s.
Yeah.
There was like
in
Twin Peaks
1992, I
and
think you
stuff.
expected
and
this.
I think it'd be hard for this show to be really good when it was made, I think. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Like
Yeah.
maybe if they did it now, there would be a better chance. Like TV has just kind of evolved more since then.
But I want to hear. I'm curious what every listener, because I know a lot of listeners really like these, and I
Yeah.
like this quite a bit. And I show up on the Listeners Crusade on Facebook, because I would love to hear what everybody's thinking
Sure.
about this.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear more of these, we will have more. I can't guarantee how many, but we will definitely do more of these. They will probably be on our Patreon show. So if you want to join us over on Patreon, IndianaJonesMinute.com/Patreon, we have talked about all kinds of fun stuff like E.T. and Close Encounters and lots of Spielberg stuff. And we'll do some of these too. We've done some of the Indiana Jones comic books, and we'll talk about some more of the young Indiana Jones and kind of take a George Lucas direction, I guess.
Well, wait a minute. There's something coming in.
oh.
There's something coming in over the
Oh my
wire.
God.
Whoa!
Yeah.
How did you find us in Mexico?
Oh, she knows Pancho Villa. 2 questions, one for each of you.
Ooh.
You guys
Quite the
ready?
3 of
Yes.
Yeah.
This just in from Professor Christy Porter. Pete, is this more or less colonial than the 80s Indiana Jones movies?
Oh, I think it's the opposite. I think this is the opposite of colonial. Like this
Okay.
seems like it's, especially for the time, this seems very much like kind of George Lucas kind of saying, "Hey, we're gonna fight with the underdog, and we're gonna, colonialism." When you see what Miss Seymour does when she tries to, underpay the guy, they get into trouble. And I think this seems to be saying, treat people fairly.
Okay. All right. Boop, 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 boop.
Burp.
Tommy, this is for you. Big wheel or green machine? No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm
that's
kidding.
sad.
No,
It's sad because I never had a green machine. I think it would have been really cool.
That was the answer, though. Which is too bad you didn't
I
have.
know. If you could take a 2-year trip as a kid, would you have done it?
Wow.
2 years now. 2 years.
I guess so. I don't know. I'm his age. I'm like 9 or something.
Yeah, you're 9. So you're in Potomac, Maryland.
Yeah.
Just about to move to Silver Spoons.
I bet I would. I bet I would not be interested in the idea of it, but it'd probably be fun once I was forced to do it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And he'd speak like 32 languages now.
Yeah.
That's the line that killed me in this thing. Lawrence of Arabia
Yeah.
tells Indy, "Hey, by the way, whatever you do, wherever you go, learn the language." Like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I'll just do that.
Yeah. That
yeah, but what are you
great
gonna like?
advice.
Oh, here I am in France. Don't everybody hang on a second. I'm gonna learn French. Hang on. I'll be right with you.
And what's weird about it is you're like, oh, and he doesn't learn Jovitos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
his mistake in Raiders.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
listen to anybody in this entire episode, except for Howard Carter with his busting through walls.
Well, great. Well, yeah, please, everybody, tell us what you think of these shows. We would love to hear your opinion. And keep watching. You'll hear some more from us here, some special episodes, and we will be back, hopefully before too terribly long, with Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and all of its glorious young Indiana Jones references. So until then, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Zoinks.
Jeepers creepers.
Holy smokes.